Warsafe was actually inspired by a dream I had. I think it was a recurring dream when I was about 11, 12. I had this dream where you would start on the bottom floor of this really, really tall building, and you would try to work your way up through the floors without getting caught by these guards who were patrolling the floors. And the dream didn't give me any context for why this building existed or what this game was or what was really going on here. And so Warsafe was kind of an effort to take this basic concept and go, okay, why is this happening and what is the significance? I just graduated from Hillsdale College with an economics major and a journalism minor. So I hope one day, besides the fiction writing, to do some financial reporting, maybe get my master's degree in economics, and hopefully continue pursuing a career in radio and journalism. Writing and marketing while in college means you have to make some sacrifices. And really the only way to get through it is to choose what's important and what you're going to prioritize and spend most of your time doing. So for me, I really needed 8 hours of sleep. That was pretty much non-negotiable. But I also knew that I had to market my books, I had to write my books, and for me those activities were fun. So I considered them kind of restful and kind of work. And whenever I had done a bunch of studying and just really needed a break but still wanted to feel productive, I would work on those activities. And then if there was something that needed a lot of mental attention, such as actually writing new material, not so much editing, but writing new stuff, I would put that off and do it over the summer or over Christmas breaks. And again, I found it relaxing, so it was fairly easy to keep up with. Although there were definitely times when things got really busy. There were times when a lot of microwave meals were eaten in college. I don't know if my main character, Hallie, would actually want to play video games after everything that she goes through in Warsafe. No spoilers, but I'm guessing her relationship with software and technology is complicated at this point. But if I had to pick a game that I think she would enjoy just for its own sake as a story, I would probably pick a Nintendo Switch game called Octopath Travelers. I love this game. It's really cute. It's story-based. It's these 8 adventurers whose stories all kind of intertwine throughout the game, and they go on little quests across this very beautiful scenery, and it's very relaxing. It's fun, it's cute. Might be a good break for Hallie after everything she's been through. Kind of a cliche for people who start their careers young, but I cannot remember a time when I wasn't writing. All the way back to the point where I would take a sheet of printer paper, fold it in half, draw a little cover on the front of it, and write some story that was 3 sentences long on the inside. And then I would make my parents buy it for a quarter, which they did, which was great. But yeah, truly, I have always wanted to write. I've always wanted to be a storyteller, whether through fiction or nonfiction. And it's actually kind of a funny story how I got into book writing in the first place. I had this manuscript that I'd written just kind of in my free time as a 13-year-old, and I ended up getting this interest in movies. So I became an extra on the set of a movie, and at the ripe old age of 13, I became a flag-waving anarchist in a movie. And I met the screenwriter for that movie, and he had written a book that was kind of in a similar genre as the manuscript that I had. And so I ended up reaching out to his publisher. They accepted my manuscript. That was Stories of the Night, my very first book, and that's how I got published for the first time. My job in college, outside of writing these books, was always journalism. I do hard news, I do profiles, I do interviews, I do all kinds of stuff. I do radio, I've done a little bit of video. But one of my favorite things is actually not news at all, but this podcast I run called Grammar Minute. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's a 60-second writing crash course. And essentially we just go through a rule of writing, a rule of grammar, a news item about writing. Occasionally we'll talk about AI, for example, and just explain that in a concise and entertaining way. And that comes out, it's on a little hiatus right now because I'm out of town, Sound, but that comes out typically 5 days a week. And that show is just a blast to listen to, and it's just a great resource that's always going to be free for people who are interested in writing and all genres of writing, fiction and nonfiction. So that's been a great thing. And then I also actually have 2 other minute-long podcasts, one called Money Minute, which is about economics. That was my major in college. And then Astro Minute, which my mom, who's an astronomer, writes the scripts for those. So yeah, journalism is a blast for me in all forms. And it's a different way of telling stories than fiction that I absolutely love. One of the most interesting, truly journalistic pieces that I wrote actually came out on a website called Michigan News Source. And it was kind of a telling of my experiences with getting rid of my smartphone for a certain amount of time and the productivity increases that I saw and just how much better I felt without the smartphone. Now, those of you who are astute observers will see that I am in fact filming this on an iPhone right now. So I did not stick with my dumb phone experiment, but writing about it was really a blast, and getting to, listen to some other people's experiences with this and interview a few people about their dumb phones and their smartphone experiences. That was a great piece. So that came out, I think, in 2023 on Michigan News Source. Other pieces that I'm hoping to release soon will be just as much of a surprise to me as they will be to you, but they will all be on my Instagram account, Smyth Books, and that's Smith spelled with a Y. One of the side characters in Warsafe deals with this issue where she has a profession that she loves, that she's good at, that she's wanted to go into her whole life, but she sees it being used for so much evil throughout the story. She doesn't know how to take her moral worldview and apply it to her profession. And that's something she really struggles with right up until the end of Warsafe, when she finally kind of comes to a conclusion on this issue. And I faced this a lot in college as well. Every profession has kind of a good side and a dark side, and journalism, which is my main profession, certainly has that as well. And so I think watching this character kind of struggle through, okay, I know I'm called to this, but there are a lot of challenges along the way. I really hope that journey can inspire some readers and help them feel that they're not alone if they face that in their calling as well. High school, I enjoyed playing video games, and so I decided, well, I'm gonna make one of my own, and it's gonna be story-based, it's gonna be a choose-your-own-adventure, text-based video game. So I sat down and started teaching myself how to code completely from scratch. Didn't know really anything about it before I started, but I started working in Python and got this whole thing set up, successfully coded an entire video game by myself. And it ended up being 120,000 lines of code. And I decided I'm never doing that again. It would be far easier to just write a book about video games instead of actually making the game. So that's what I did with Warsafe. And do I regret making that game? No, but it probably did increase my glasses prescription quite a bit. So I don't know if I recommend. So this is one of my cats. This is the older cat. His name is Hadrian. And as you might suspect, he is the cat that I didn't get to name as a 12-year-old. This cat I did get to name, and so her name is Mittens. And she is way sweeter than Hadrian. Hadrian's a little spicy. Mittens is very sweet until, eventually she'll get a little tired of you, and you'll go up to her expecting to hug her, and she'll do this. They are not helpful to the writing process in the slightest. They will sit there and look at you judgmentally, though. Summer break has officially begun for me, So we're breaking out the Hawaiian shirt. We're really looking like we're on vacation here. But I'm actually not on vacation right now. I am on the campus of Dordt University with the World Journalism Institute for a 2.5 week, super intense, 14-hour day journalism program. And it's been so fun right now. I have gotten to write stories, I've done radio stories, I've done some TV news stories, and I'm having an absolute blast. So, if I had to take one of my characters on a vacation this summer, I think I would bring them here because I would love to sit down with them and interview them on all the things that they go through in the plot of Warsafe. I think that would be a great breaking news story. When I write books like Warsafe, where there's a ton of action, there's a lot going on, and the characters are kind of constantly risking terrible things happening to them, even dying. I find that even if I try to write it without my faith entering into the story, it just doesn't work. Because, if you are constantly being confronted with your own mortality, of course you're going to be questioning, is there a life after death? Am I going somewhere? Does this mean something? And so for me, faith played a huge part in the character development throughout Warsafe because it just seemed natural that characters would start to question these things, would run up against this, and kind of have to make a decision in the story in order for it to feel like realistic growth. So yeah, so faith was huge for me throughout the process. I don't think there was a moment in writing Warsafe where that thought was not in the back of my mind. One of my absolute favorite hobbies is stand-up paddleboarding. I think my love for it comes from ballet because, in ballet, you're always standing on one foot. You're doing all these balancing exercises. And it's the same thing for stand-up paddleboarding. You're wobbling and you're kind of close to the water, so if you fall, you're going to get really wet. But it's just one of those fun challenges that I've always really enjoyed. And nowadays I actually have a lake in my backyard, so I can take my paddleboard and walk out the door. So I love this question, and I really wish I were home right now because if I were, you would be getting a big tour throughout my bookshelf. But as I said, I am at Dordt University, so I'm not home. I'm a very long ways from home, and I can't show you all of my favorite books. But my favorite author growing up was Jules Verne, who is kind of a late 1800s science fiction writer. So he's very early in his genre, and he's not writing super high science fiction. He's writing kind of things you might expect to come true in the next 50 to 100 years. And a lot of what he wrote actually did come true. So that was always one of my favorite genres. And as I grew up a little bit, I started wanting to see, okay, what do more modern writers think is going to happen in the next 50 to 100 years? And over my lifetime, will they be correct about what's happening? Can they predict the role that AI is going to play? Can they predict whether we'll go back to space, whether we'll colonize Mars? Things like that. I really love hypotheticals in books. I just love seeing what could become true or what could be true if we tweaked one little thing about society or politics. I'm one of those writers who needs a snack and a drink at all times. And I get the coffee tea question a lot. I'm more of a coffee person, but there's a place for tea. Tea really helps me when I'm doing voiceover or doing radio work. So I typically save tea for when I'm speaking. When I'm writing, I almost always have some form of coffee. My favorite is a plain iced latte. You can't beat that. And then for snacks, I am a huge fan of pistachios. So pistachios and coffee. Not the world's greatest combination, but it works for me. If I get totally stuck in the writing process, thoughts are just not coming clearly and my mind feels like it's in a blur, really the only thing I've found that helps is stop. Go outside, do something else, go for a hike, go paddleboarding, pet a cat, just don't think about it for a while. I often hear, the advice that if you're having writer's block, truly the only way to get through it is to just work through it and force yourself through it. That doesn't work for me. It may work for some people, but it has never worked for me. So I'm one of those writers who writes with no outline. This is what my outline looks like before I write my book. And that can be really challenging because you get partway through the book and you have this great, brilliant idea that you weren't planning. And you look back and you realize, oh, there's some fact that's central to the story that completely conflicts with what I just wrote. And you have to go back and you have to fix it. And that involves some huge rewrites. And so Warsafe had this problem all over the place. There were several things that got added in later that I decided to keep that conflicted with what happened at the beginning of the story, and I had to fix that. Not only did I have to fix it, but I also had to catch it, which meant that I had to read that manuscript probably 6, 7, 8, maybe more times in order to make it make any sort of sense, and that was before it went through any kind of official editing. That was just me trying to make sure that the manuscript was continuous. So I'd say that was my biggest challenge, and I realized that in later books, started trying to write with an outline, and just never got into the habit. So that'll probably be an issue in future releases as well, but we'll see. I think for me, the best part of writing Warsafe was just all the places that I got to do it. I moved states while writing Warsafe, so I got to write in those 2 central locations. I went to college while writing Warsafe, so I got to do some writing at home, some at college. I wrote while on vacations. I wrote while out of the country. I wrote while outside. I wrote while inside. There were just so many different places that inspired Warsafe, and so many things I was looking at while I was writing, and just visuals that went into the story that I don't think I would have gotten had I stayed in one location the entire time. So yeah, the ability to just take my laptop and go was one of the highlights of writing Warsafe for me. I am back with a totally unexplained outfit change in a different part of the Dordt University campus. And if you made it this far in the interview, I just wanted to say thank you for sticking with me while I tell all these stories, all the backstory that went into the making of this book. And I hope you will enjoy this video game story. I cannot tell you how much fun I had designing the game that's at the center of this plot in my head and putting it out onto the paper. And I hope you will enjoy traveling through it with the characters Petra and Hallie and Roscoe and others as they try to unravel the secret behind this video game design company. And so happy reading with that, and hopefully I will see you guys again soon. Thanks for listening.